Tyrannosaurus Rex is one of, if not the most famous and identifiable dinosaurs of all time. It is literally a movie star, but as we all know, Hollywood isn't the best source of scientific fact, and it has certainly been hit or miss in its depiction of T-Rex. Let's take a bite out of our most current scientific understanding of this terrible lizard. First, let's start with that moniker, terrible lizard. While the word terrible is subjective, though most of us would agree that running into a T-Rex would be terrible, the word lizard is definitely objective, and it is objectively wrong. Tyrannosaurus Rex was not a lizard. Almost all scientists agree that it was almost certainly warm-blooded. Fossil analysis much more aligns it with warm-blooded creatures. Well, what are dinosaurs if they aren't lizards? Dinosaurs, including T-Rex, are a type of reptile called archosaurs. Archosaurs also include birds and crocodiles. Crocodiles, by the way, are much older than dinosaurs, which is extra cool because they are still here. When you look at a croc, you're looking at a creature about 40 million years older than the first dinosaurs. Sorry, I just think that's awesome. Prehistoric beasts still living among us? And don't get me started on sharks. Actually, we already did a deep dive podcast about sharks and megalodon, which I'll link in the description. Anyway, back to T-Rex. If you've seen any Jurassic Park movies, nobody would blame you for assuming T-Rex was from the Jurassic period. Well, it actually lived in the Cretaceous period, which comes after the Jurassic. An adult T-Rex could top out around 18,000 pounds, was 13 feet tall at the hip, could stand 20 feet tall, and could grow to over 40 feet in length, nose to tail. 40 feet! They fed on Triceratops, Edmontosaurs, and others, including other Tyrannosaurs. And T-Rex had a lifespan of around 30 years. How do we know what they ate? Well, we often find T-Rex teeth among the bones of those other dinosaurs, so that's a good clue. It's like finding shark teeth among a whale carcass. We actually made a video about the bone bed we have in our paleo exhibit. It is littered with T-Rex teeth among the other bones. I'll link the video in the podcast description, of course, in case you want to see for yourself. But better yet, you can also just come to the museum to see it in person. Hint, hint, wink, wink. Let's go over some more amazing Tyrannosaur facts, some of which fly in the face of movie myth, as you'll soon discover. But to be fair, we've learned an awful lot more about dinosaurs since the first Jurassic Park movie debuted decades ago in 1993. And now I feel really old. First, let's get the biggest movie myth out of the way. Tyrannosaurus had excellent eyesight. The eyes were massive and more forward-facing on the skull, so it also had phenomenal depth perception. Not only that, but scientists even theorize that it may have been able to see further beyond the visible light spectrum than first thought, meaning it could see colors we couldn't, especially in the dark. In Jurassic Park, Dr. Grant emphasizes that T-Rex's vision was based on movement. We have learned now that that is deadly wrong. Standing still in front of a T-Rex would be a death sentence. But if you faced a T-Rex, there is some hope. Not much, but some. Jurassic Park also said they clocked the T-Rex at 32 miles per hour. Nope. Decades of study, including locomotion dynamics of the tail, muscles, skeleton, etc., reveal that while perhaps T-Rex could lunge that quickly, it almost certainly could not run that fast. Modern estimates put it at maybe 12 to 15 miles per hour in full sprint. So the average person has a slightly better chance of outrunning T-Rex. Slightly.
Well, Mr. Johnny Smarty Pants, where would I be 100% safe from T-Rex? If it were still alive, of course.
You'd have to be very, very far away to stay off T-Rex's radar. We now know that Rex had one of the best senses of smell in history. It had a better sense of smell than 24 bloodhounds combined. It could identify you individually from over a mile away, and 1,000 more individuals with one single sniff. It'd be like taking a whiff of a nightclub from a mile down the street and then listing 1,000 people in there by name. Incredible. So it would smell you from a mile away, then see you like a hawk with night vision. It's locked on. It also had good hearing, perhaps not as phenomenal as its sense of smell and eyesight, but still very good. Scientists theorize that, given what we know about other large animals, it might have had a hard time with higher frequencies. This makes sense though, as everything it needed to hunt or run away from was also large or larger. It's more concerned with the rumble of approaching prey or predators than the squeak of a tiny animal not worth their while or worry. Before we move on to other attributes, you might be asking yourself,
how can we possibly know so much about T-Rex's senses?
Well, scans and x-rays of Tyrannosaurus's skull and brain case. We can see the nerve canals, how many and where they lead. Rex's sense of smell is the most dominant, a truly staggering amount of nerve canals dedicated to its sense of smell alone, and vision for that matter. If you think of it like looking at a road map, you'd see two very road-dense cities named Smellville and Vision Town. So its senses were just off the charts. It would smell you from a mile away and track you down precisely. Forget standing still. Run. Lastly, for this episode anyway, let's talk about T-Rex's main claim to fame. Its nightmare jaws. T-Rex had the strongest bite force of any land animal, living or dead, with a bite force slightly greater than its own body weight, up to around 13,000 pounds or 35,000 newtons. In other words, it could easily crush a car. Imagine a giant grand piano falling on you. Actually, scratch that. Imagine 13 giant grand pianos falling on you. You don't stand a chance against a T-Rex bite. If your arm got next to its food bowl, it wouldn't even notice. It'd crunch through it like a grain of slightly overcooked rice. Interestingly enough though, Rex's teeth aren't exactly sharp. They are basically shaped like a banana, not razor sharp like a shark's teeth. I think that makes them more terrifying though. Just blunt force instruments crushing anything they contact, but puncturing through flesh and bone and never letting go. It would bite your sedan, lift it into the air with you in it, then shake it until it fell apart, leaving a good chunk left to swallow, then repeat until full. Just replace the sedan with a Triceratops and you'll get the picture. Once it bites, it does not let go until a digestible chunk falls off in its mouth. Then it rears back to allow gravity to assist swallowing. I do think Jurassic Park got that part pretty good, where it kind of tilts its head back and swallows that goat. Anyway, moving on. Most of Rex's tooth isn't just below the gum line, it is mostly embedded in the skull and jaw itself. It is anchored solidly, to say the least. Roughly 2/3 of its tooth is actually embedded in the jaw. The tip of the tooth is just the tip of the T-Rex tooth iceberg. However, when they do fall out among the violence of feeding or fighting or mating, like a shark, T-Rex's teeth grow back continuously throughout its life. That's pretty cool, and you can see that in the jaw fossils. We've made videos about it. Just check out Houston Museum of Natural Science on YouTube and get subscribed, of course. Here's something interesting I personally like to ponder. I am not a scientist, so take this with an even larger grain of salt. We haven't mentioned juvenile tyrannosaurs. Juvenile tyrannosaur fossils are harder to come by. Not impossible, but we find many more adults than we find youths. With scientists smarter than me now theorizing that T-Rex was a pack animal, it has me thinking. And again, this is just me, Johnny Hamburger, your mental curator. Remember I said that we now believe adult T-Rex topped out around 12 to 15 miles per hour? surely small juveniles could run faster. So when I personally put 2 and 2 together, pack animals with fast youngsters underfoot, perhaps young, small T-Rexes could reach closer to 20 or even 30 miles per hour, or at least be able to chase larger, slower prey much easier, injuring it enough until mom and dad arrive to finish the job. Chomp. I'm sure I'm not completely alone in that theory. It just makes perfect sense to me. But, we don't find many juvenile fossils to support my theory. Yet, at least. We need to find conclusive evidence of juveniles around a kill site. We find the dead adults in the kill site, but the juveniles are probably able to escape whatever larger threat killed their parents. Hence, why we don't often find their fossils nearby. All of this is just my personal speculation. But what do you think? Do you have any theories about T-Rex? If you're listening to this podcast on an outlet with a comment section, like YouTube, let us know. We have several incredible T-Rex specimens and more at the Houston Museum of Natural Science. Stop by and visit sometime. Be sure to like and subscribe to this podcast. Rate it if possible, and share it with your friends. But until next time, I've been your mental curator, Johnny Hemberger. Thanks for listening, and stay curious.